1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters gon' move. Whatever click you choose, you better stay.
What up, cuz? What up, blood? What up, gangsta?
If you a Crip or Damu and want your phone case to represent too, just tap in with cases and more.printify.me. They got different designs, different artists, football teams, basketball teams. So just be sure to tap in, and I'm guaranteeing you're going to find something that you like. It don't matter if you got the latest Apple 16, 15, if you got the 10, if you got the 8. It don't matter if you got Androids, Samsungs, man. He definitely is going to have a case to fit your phone. Just tap in with cases and more.printify.me. I'm going to leave a link in the description that's going to take you right to the online store. Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm finally back like I'm on a parole violation. You're down. For those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Yeah, that's me gassing on that song, man. You already know what it is. Let's hop right up into this story, man. So today I got an unfortunate story that hits close to home for me and my family. I had a cousin who recently lost his life in prison last week. There has been quite a few murders lately in the last month or so out there in the Nevada prison system, and my cousin unfortunately happened to be one of them. His name was Ryan Warren Hunt, and let me just show you guys this clip.
The Nevada Department of Corrections is investigating suspected homicides after 4 inmates have died in the past month. The deaths at High Desert State Prison include 35-year-old Jacob Herman, 34-year-old Jordan Canterbury, and 18-year-old Demario Wallace. At the Southern Desert Correctional Center, 35-year-old Ryan Warren Hunt died yesterday.
My cousin Ryan was 35 years old. He had been locked up since 2020, so a little bit over 5 years. He is considerably younger than I am, so I didn't actually get a chance to know him well or spend much time with him. He was probably around the age of 3 or 4 before I got incarcerated and went to prison and done all the time that I done. And so when I got out, I do remember meeting him again one time at his mother's house, and we spoke briefly. And so while he was living in California when I paroled, he was sentenced to prison in California, and he was sentenced to 192 to 900 months. They sentenced him for burglary with a firearm, robbery, and conspiracy of a violent crime with the use of a deadly weapon. And before being incarcerated in the Nevada prison system, he done a few small stints, I think a year here, a year there in these California prisons, right? After he was sentenced to the time in Nevada, he would often speak with his mom, and he would, try to calm her fears and just tell her, hey, mom, don't worry. The prisons out here are nowhere near as bad as they are in California. There's not the political stuff going on. The prison that he lost his life in was known as Southern Desert Correctional Facility, and to my understanding, it's a few miles outside of Las Vegas. And once again, it just goes to show and confirm something that I've always said when I'm doing my prison stories. Prison is prison, regardless of the level, regardless of what they say the security level is. You still have dangerous men in prison. My cousin Ryan's mother has received several calls from the Nevada prison system saying that the murder is still under investigation. My cousin Ryan's mother, Roz, is my first cousin. Roz's father and my mother are brother and sister, and so that's how we're related. And once again, like I said, while I didn't know him very well, I was still, of course, extremely sad and hurt to hear that he he lost his life in prison because it is being investigated as a murder. According to some of the information that she received, he was stabbed numerous times. So by me being an individual that's done a lot of time myself, I've seen a lot of violence in prison. I've seen a lot of 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, things of that nature. It's easier for me to get a picture of the potential struggle that he went through in fighting for his life. And so, even though I do not know what happened, I can just visualize a scenario of him being attacked by several individuals, which is what's being reported to my cousin, and him losing his life. And so that's definitely it's definitely a sad thing, right, and a tough pill to swallow. Nevertheless, it just goes to show that prison is prison, man, and those type of incidents can happen in any prison, anywhere. Here he was at a prison where he didn't necessarily assume that he was in much danger, and it just goes to show, like I said once again, that anybody can lose their life. It just also makes me, when I hear about anybody losing their life in prison, it just makes me feel fortunate thinking about all the time that I've done, all the things that I've been through, because like I said, anybody at any given moment can get caught up in a situation that can be potentially life-threatening, right? Also, his mother, my cousin Roz, said that when he was going through the trial proceedings and the court proceedings, things like that, he was offered 8 years. And so, of course, it's hard not to think about, had he took that 8 years, he more than likely would have been home by now, and he would have avoided that situation that ultimately cost him his life. Also, when I was searching the information about my cousin losing his life, they showed another individual who had lost his life in that 1 month span. And I believe he was only about 18 years old and hadn't been in prison that long. So, for the individuals that's out there living that type of lifestyle, I think we fail to realize the ones we really hurt the most is the people who love us, specifically our parents, our loved ones, so on and so forth. My cousin, she shared with me that that just due to her son being the individual who he was a gang member. She knows that, she acknowledges that, she does not try to deny that. She said that she just always would sleep with the phone on her side, not wanting to hear bad news, but having the phone there just in case, something was to happen. He was to get into some stuff, and, she got a call giving her some news that was extremely unfortunate, and something of some news, something similar to this or whatever. She just said that, it was hard to always be at ease just knowing her son was the individual that he was. He was a line pusher. He was with the business. She described him as being a bull. She said that he was, he definitely was a gang member, and he pushed that line. And so, about my cousin just being an individual who has been around individuals and who's familiar with that type of lifestyle. She knows that sometimes that is the end result of a person living that lifestyle. And so it was just hard for her to have a restful mind just knowing that her son was in that situation. So of course it goes without saying that any loss of life is extremely unfortunate, and once again, by this being my cousin, it does hit closer to home. The sad part about this is, even though it's my cousin, the script doesn't change. For those individuals like myself and others who involve themselves in this type of lifestyle, that old cliche is true. You can only expect two things, either death or prison, and sometimes it's both. So for those out there, living this lifestyle, chasing this lifestyle, wanting to get caught up in this type of madness, this is some of the things that you can expect. Not to mention, you have to keep in mind, the hardship, the anguish, and all the mental madness we send our loved ones through, and especially our mothers and things like that. So rest in peace to my cousin Ryan. I send my condolences once again, to his mother, his father, all his family and friends, man. You already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life, man. Resume normal program.